What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Fixed Facebook Live event. This is Dr. Jay Greenstein here with my very good friend, Mr. Kevin Christie. I don't know, somehow
How you
you earned
doing?
a DC degree in the past day or so. What's going on?
I may have exited patient care, but I still have the title.
I love it. I love it, bro. It is great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this program with us today. Really appreciate it. I've known you for many years. You have been an all-star in the clinical sports arena, as well as now really being a leading coach and helping chiropractors all over the world be successful. But I'd love to start today with your background as a clinician, right? Like you were so involved in sports and probably still are to some degree for so long. You did great work. So maybe share with the audience a little bit about your sports background.
Yeah, definitely. When I was an undergrad from 1998 to '02 at Florida State University, I was an exercise physiology major, and then I was an assistant strength coach for the sports teams there for a couple of years, and just really enjoyed that. And so when I matriculated into chiropractic school, I had that mindset that I really wanted to work with athletes. And so I, was obviously following the curriculum at Logan College of Chiropractic, but then I was also diving into Motion Palpation Institute and active release and Graston and a lot of other, techniques to help me with that. And I graduated in the tail end of 2005 and was, I got a nice internship and then a job down in South Florida where I'm originally from, the Palm Beach area. And I just started diving into working with local athletes. I got really lucky in 2007. So about a year and a half after starting as a licensed DC, I got an opportunity to go into a partnership in a sports training facility in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. It's now called Bommarito Performance, and they are just, they work with a ton of athletes. And so at that point, I took over as a clinical director, and I started going to the NFL Combine program with them. I traveled on the PGA Tour for a year in 2011. Basically 12 years I did the Combine until the pandemic, and I haven't been since. But yeah, I just was really thrown into the mix with a lot of the athletic population, and so it really ran the gamut of all sports. Being in South Florida, I was fortunate where it was that opportunity meets, preparation meets opportunity. I felt like I was prepared, but then being in South Florida, there was just a ton of opportunities. It's a hotbed for athletics, and I really dove into that. And so that's how I got my start, really my feet to the fire. And I learned a lot during that process.
So, we're talking to a group of sports chiropractors, the best sports chiropractors literally on the planet. Like this is fixed, the fixed community, and no disparaging any national association, but you've got just this great group of sports chiropractors, and they probably already know this, but maybe they don't. What was it that sports chiropractic did for your practice growth?
Yeah. I always say, where do regular people want to go, when they had an injury, right? Where do they want to go? They want to go to a doctor, be it a chiropractor or physical therapist or orthopedic surgeon. They want to go to a doctor that is working with high level people, right? And in their mind, they're able to bridge that gap and say, well, if they can work on X, Y, Z as far as sports injuries at a certain level, then I'm sure they can work on me, right? And there's been a huge carryover in that regard, and whether it was sports specific or not, right? Like, obviously working with a lot of the NFL players that I did helped me with, say, high school football players, but it also helped me with the runner or the triathlete or the swimmer or the golfer, because they said, well, again, if he could work with that high level of an injury in an athlete, I'm sure he can help me out. So it definitely had a lot of help to grow my practice.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's the word that comes to mind is status, right? Like your patients want to be like, oh, I go to see Dr. Kevin Christie because he went to the NFL Combine, he was on the PGA Tour, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of it's their elevation of status because, well, quite frankly, you've got an elevated status. I mean, you've got a personal chiropractic brand that is one of the best, and so people want to attach to that as part of their self identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had some good opportunities too. Like I was on Fox Sports. Actually, sadly, with Anthony Johnson, the MMA fighter. He just passed away actually this week
Oh,
at
wow.
38. But I was on with him because I was working with him. I was on ESPN Path to the Draft with a combine guy. 2 episodes on ESPN, right? And of course, I put that on my homepage of the website. That's still there. And so
Absolutely.
there were some opportunities that I was able to capture and then use elegantly to let people know that these are some of the things we're doing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And that really kind of leads me into what I really want to focus on today, over the next, 10 minutes or so while we're here, Kevin, is, I've seen your practice, beautiful practice in South Florida. You've literally corner the market on identifying as well as teaching and coaching chiropractors how to build their business ethically through appropriate ethical marketing. And we know there's some folks out there that are not doing it that way. But what you've done is you've got a phenomenal Facebook group, one of the largest in chiropractic. You've got a podcast that you share this information with. You've got a coaching group and a mastermind group. Give us the top five secrets, so to speak, of ethical marketing that our sports chiropractors from around the world can utilize and feel really good about reaching out to the public who needs us so desperately.
Yeah, so I think if you come at it, the table stakes needs to be that you are a really good clinician, right? So we need that foundation and we need to pair that up with being patient centered, right? Like ultimately, everything we need to do has to be geared towards that patient and making it ethical, right? And so, and the interesting psychological barrier that I've seen amongst, say, sports chiropractors or evidence informed chiropractors is that they feel like having to do marketing or being good at business isn't congruent with those two things that I said, and I disagree with that. I feel like if you come at it as a really sharp clinician and you're patient centered, then on top of that you do the things to spotlight that, you can really grow a successful practice. And I so the first thing, number one, would be what I just mentioned, marrying those two things, right? Two would be, you know, you should have sold yourself on what you do, right? Like you should feel like, yeah, I'm good at this. I actually can help people in a very good way. And so if that's the case, you should be willing to get that information out to the masses in your community and feel good about that. I've seen Facebook posts before where a doctor will say, I don't feel comfortable with self promotion, right? And I don't like hearing that. And because I think they're coming at it from the wrong angle. They're thinking of the person that's, maybe they're more sizzle than they are steak, or more hat than cowboy, right? But if you're coming at it with those really good clinical skill sets and you're patient centered, and then you just promote education and you provide as much content, information out there as you can, then that is a form of promotion, but it's not self promotion, right? And you're just becoming a leading educator in the community. So that's number two. Number three is I heard a great thing. I can't remember where it was. I digest a lot of information, but someone talking about doctors, and they said uh, to be good at business as a doctor doesn't mean you have to be a shark or a snake, or you're taking advantage of people. The actual being good at business aspect is providing the best patient experience that you can. If you can focus on that, that is good business, right? And then yeah, like there's other business things, like probably put a good accountant around you, probably a good bookkeeper, right? Like maybe a financial planner. Like those are obviously things that you might want some input on as well, that when you start becoming profitable, you're utilizing that money appropriately. But good, I want you to start thinking of good business as you're just laser focused on the patient experience. And so that would be number three. And then four is be very consistent with content, like get it out there. Again, we're not trying to be a TikTok celebrity. I think that's some of the things that have gotten in a way for chiropractors that are ethically based, is they're like, well, I don't want to be just like, a TikTok star or, a YouTube celebrity. think of it just more of again, you're creating educational content, whether it's video, blogs, public speaking, right? All these things that are out there, get that out consistently, and that will position you as an expert. And then lastly, the fifth thing I would say is, don't be afraid to invest in a great team around you. And that kind of goes into the patient experience side of things. But I just interviewed someone on my podcast on leadership, and I had mentioned, it hasn't come out yet, but I talked about how I tend to be a reserved person more. I can get kind of locked in my personal office a little bit. When I was treating patients, I stepped out a few months ago, but when I was treating patients, I'd be very laser focused on that, and not as, say, fun and outgoing and like, the life of the party. So I actually would hire people around me that could bring up that side of it a little bit. So be self-aware on some of the things maybe that I don't want to say lack, but just be honest with yourself, and then put people around you that then puts a great team around that patient. And ultimately your clinic is providing that. And so I think a lot of chiropractors tend to fail to invest in team members. And when you hire great team members, it's amazing what that does for your practice overall. So there's 5 for you.
That's great, man. I know we could sit here all day and talk about those 5, each one individually, but that is fantastic. I think that everything resonates with me. I feel like the idea that we should not be promoting ourselves and our practice in chiropractic is something that I've seen as well. And it's not the platform. It's not that it's TikTok. It shouldn't matter. The fact of the matter is that 49% of the population has never seen a chiropractor, according to Gallup. And that needs to change, because there is so much guideline discordant care out there where patients don't know about chiropractic. They go into the wrong portal of entry. They have fragmented, expensive, ineffective care, and that is not okay. And we have, I think, not just an opportunity, but more so, I think we have a social responsibility to get the evidence-based chiropractic word out there. And by the way, evidence-based is 3 things, not one thing, not just scientific literature, but patient values and clinician experience. So I'm really glad that you brought that to light. And then the second thing that you brought to light, which, we've had many conversations about, is just your team, right? Yeah. Like being self-aware, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your areas of opportunity are, and making sure you've got the right people in the right seats, doing the right work, the right way, at the right time, in order to move the needle for your practice. And invest was a key word that you said, Kevin, that I want everybody in the audience to hear, because it really is an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment.
Yeah, it is, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a shout out. We had our final mastermind weekend this past weekend, and we all went around and was like, okay, what was one of the big things you got from this year? Because there's 4 weekends, and like half the room mentioned something that you taught us in the first weekend down in Delray. And a lot of that was built around, you talked about team, and it was a lot of leadership and stuff, but you talked about, that diagram you showed of like A player, B player, C player, and all that. So thank you on that. But yeah, it's huge. You've got to reinvest money into your practice, and a big part of that is the team. And I suffered from that issue years ago. I just try to do too many things. And so now I've definitely learned my way around that.
Awesome. Kev, thanks for the shout out. I missed you guys this past weekend, but as you know, I was at Chiro Congress doing my thing over there, but love your mastermind group. It is a group of remarkable, outstanding chiropractors and more importantly, just amazing people. So sorry I missed you guys, but hopefully soon. Yep. I think January is next, so I'm looking forward to it. Lastly, Kev, how can people learn more about you and all the great work that you're doing for chiropractic around the world?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of things. We have a podcast called Modern Chiropractic Mastery, and it's everything from marketing, business, communications. I mean, I even have a clinical psychologist that comes on every so often to talk about things like burnout, anxiety around patient care. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into what we do, and it's a weekly show, mostly interviews, sometimes solo episodes, but we're really trying to touch on all those things. I mean, I've had everything from talking about maternity leave to retirement, right? So we talk about all kinds of things on that podcast. So you could check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com to look at that. And I think I think the unique angle that I bring to it is, a lot of people ask, like, how did you get to this point? And there's a term called skill stacking from Scott Adams, and it's starting to stack certain skills that becomes a unique positioning that you have. And for me, being in the trenches for 17 years, I think helped me, that when we started to realize, like, a lot of evidence-based chiropractors are struggling with the basics of what we're talking about today, I realized, like, someone needed to start having these conversations around marketing. And that's how I started with it. And then diving into that to grow the practice for people, because there's just too many dying on the vine a little bit. And so I feel like I can speak the nuances, where if you had like a pure marketer, but they don't have a great background on chiropractic, they miss out a little bit on the nuances of our profession.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like I can connect those dots for you and try to bring as much value as possible. So that'd be the best way to reach out.
Awesome. So you've got a website, Modern Chiropractic Mastery, correct?
Modernchiropracticmarketing.com.
Okay.
That's the name of the company and the website and the Facebook group and all that stuff. The podcast just has a slightly different name that we actually rebranded because we realized, like, it became way more than just marketing as far as the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Cav, I just want to personally thank you for all you do for chiropractic and chiropractors around the world. You are one of the bright lights in our profession, and I just really appreciate you. And thank you for spending your valuable time with us today, man.
Definitely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great to see you.
Yep.
Bye now.